welcome back to my channel. Today is finally the long-awaited, well for me, the long-awaited my August wrap-up. So this is my first month on BookTube and it's been really fun experience. This month was a great reading month. I actually read 12 books, which is way above my norm, and I'm really excited to get into them. A lot of them were really great. I had a good variety. I had one DNF, which I'm gonna spew about. I freaking hated that book. So let's get into this. I do want to give a disclaimer that most of the books that I read this month were library books, so there's gonna be a lot of shiny flaps. I'm just letting you know, but let's get into the video. The first book I read was Diary of a Bookseller by Shaun Bytell. This is a memoir diary of a bookseller in basic forms. Shaun Bytell runs the bookshop in Wigtown in Scotland, and he basically, what he does every day is he journals about the customers that come into the shop, what he had to do during the day, what it's like to run a bookshop. This book actually correlates to a couple books that I read later in the month. It really shows a true depiction of what it's like to be a bookseller. Some of the customer sayings were hilarious. It was completely hilarious, made me cry. I gave this book 4 stars, and like the cover says, it's laugh out loud funny, and some of the parts were hilarious, but not every single entry was as hilarious as that. So I think I was looking for something a little more laugh out loud, so it wasn't a near perfect book for me, but it was definitely a great read. I would recommend it to anybody who's interested in bookselling, interested in books and what the thoughts of a bookseller would be. This book is fantastic. The next book I read was The Proposal by Jasmine. This book is a romance, and it is about Nick, who is proposed to by her actor boyfriend at a baseball field. Nick thought this relationship was more casual and was definitely not looking to get married to a narcissistic actor like her boyfriend was. So she tells the boyfriend no. This is not a spoiler, it's in the back. She tells the boyfriend no, and she immediately is, met with negative comments from the crowd. She is saved by Carlos and his sister, and they get her away from the stadium. They take her to go get drinks. Carlos and his sister meet her best friends, who meet her at a bar, and Nick instantly becomes attracted to Carlos, and thus they start a casual relationship until it becomes more than casual, and that's kind of how the book is. This I didn't know was actually a partner or a companion novel to The Wedding Date. I've seen the movie The Wedding Date, and I'm not sure that movie is based on that specific book by Jasmine, but this is actually about the side characters to the Wedding Date characters. I didn't know that, and I'm really interested to read The Wedding Date now. I gave this book 5 stars. It's a great summer romance. It was cute, it was funny, it was sassy. She knew what she wanted and she knew what she didn't want, and I really love that in a character. It was really fantastic. 5 stars. The next book I read in August is my favorite book I read this month, probably one of my favorite books I've read of all time, and I'm so mad at myself that I put it off for so long, but it is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Pride and Prejudice is one of those books that they make you read in school. They never made me read it in school, but they make you read in school and you just hear that it's a classic, bore, and you never read it. This book was fantastic. I was enthralled by the story in this book, and no wonder it's so classic. I mean, it makes so much sense. This book is about the Bennet sisters, 5 Bennet sisters, and the oldest 2 are Jane and Elizabeth, and the other 3 are Mary, Kitty, and Lydia. Jane is about 23 and Elizabeth is about 20, and basically this book is about their mother obsessing over finding them husbands, because at this time that was the best for them, is to marry well. Elizabeth is more headstrong than her older sister Jane, and Jane falls for a man who moves in next door, and Elizabeth is instantly attracted to his best friend, the man's best friend that Jane falls in love with, and that is very quickly swept under the rug when Mr. Darcy, the best friend, is very rude to not only Elizabeth but to everybody. It's almost like he feels much more entitled than everybody else, and so he just kind of writes everybody off. That changes, and as the story goes on, Jane and Mr. Darcy become closer, and it is a true beautiful romance. I cannot talk about Pride and Prejudice enough. It has become one of my favorite books. Now, I did try to read it. I tried to read the physical copy, and the Old English was just not working for me. I wasn't understanding what was going on. I was confused. So I decided I would I'd listen to the audiobook, and it made it so much better for me because it was kind of like a soap opera. I mean, to be completely honest, it was really great, and I can't say anything more than fantastic. Please read it as soon as possible. Please shout it from the rooftops, and once you've read it, go watch the BBC adaptation. It's a TV show and it's on Hulu, so make sure to go check that out. Unfortunately, I went from a really high note to just a really low note, and that is when I read A Whole New World by Liz Braswell. This book I gave 2 stars, and I'll tell you exactly why I didn't like it. The premise of the book is that it's a story of Aladdin. The plot twist in the Aladdin story is, what if Aladdin never got a hold of the genie first? What if Jafar always got a hold of the genie? He always had the power. It's definitely a darker take on the Aladdin story. However, I just found that it was a vomit of the old story. If you've seen the movie, okay, if you've seen the Aladdin movie, that's exactly what happens in this book. The only thing that changes is at the end, when Jafar becomes this great and masterful sorcerer, that's pushed up, okay? And so instead of all that fun Robin Williams, Will Smith antics in the middle, that's all taken out, and that ending is pushed up. And it's definitely a darker tone of Aladdin. It just seemed not needed. I didn't understand the point. There was nothing different being stated. He did exactly what Jafar did at the end of the movie. He just did it, 3 chapters in instead of at the end. So what I didn't understand, and I definitely didn't understand the ending. So of course Jasmine and Aladdin get together, and they actually join a band of other street rats, and they form a rebellion, and they take down Jafar. However, the ending was awful. It was awful, and I hated it. Basically, they defeat Jafar, and they grab a hold of him. He's about to marry Jasmine, and they grab a hold of him, and they hold him hostage. And Jasmine has learned some black magic herself, and she's about to kill Jafar, but suddenly she has a change of heart at the last minute. Of course, to Aladdin's, pleading, like, don't kill him, like, have a fair trial, be moral. And so she changes her mind, she doesn't kill him. And he is near death at that point because, she's tortured him a little bit. And his last wish is that when he dies, all magic dies with him. Before that is said, however, one of the other street rats comes in and says, well, if Jasmine can't do it, I will, and kills him anyways. There's no fair trial. What was the point of Jasmine being the one to try to kill him? And instead one of the other street rats does. I don't understand. And so with him, the magic dies. That means the genie becomes a human. There's no more magic carpet. There's no more magic cave. There's no more magic. And that kind of takes away the thrill of Aladdin. I hated this book. Thank God, from the high to the low, and now we're back to the high. We are back with another 5-star read. This is Dante and Aristotle Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alire Saenz. This book is fantastic. I recommend anybody to read this. It follows Dante and Ari, or Aristotle. They're 2 boys in their teens. They're 15 when they meet, and they meet one summer at a pool, and they become instant best friends. And each one compliments each other. Ari is kind of a moody, brooding teenager, and Dante is just full of life. He's bright, he's happy, he's positive, but he's also a little mysterious, I guess I would say. And so basically what happens is they go through that summer, a school year, and they end in the next summer. And there are some events that bring them both closer and farther apart. And then there's this great little twist at the very end that's so good, and I'm not going to spoil it for you because you all should go read that book. Definitely, it deserves every single award it's ever received. It deserves every 5-star review it's ever received. Please go read it. The next book I read in August was Knives and Ink, Chefs and the Stories Behind Their Tattoos, edited by Isaac Fitzgerald and illustrations by Wendy McNaughton. This book was a 4-star read. This is a nonfiction book about chefs and their tattoos. And so Isaac follows about 20 chefs, I want to say, or probably even more, about what the tattoos they have, what they represent, what they mean, and the reasons go from, represents my family, represents the food I cook, represents my chef career, to this was pretty. And I think that's really what is based on real tattoo stories. A lot of times there's got to be some big meaning behind a tattoo, and I don't think so. I have a couple tattoos myself, and some of them have meaning, and some of them I just really liked them at the time. So I like this book a lot. Definitely 4 stars. It's a great short read, and I think it's really great at showing the diversity of tattoos, and the illustrations are really good. It's not photos of their physical tattoos. It's somebody drawing out a sketch of their tattoos and their bodies. So it was really good. I really enjoyed it. He has another one that's just about tattoos in general and what different symbolisms mean in tattoos and like kind of the history of tattoos. I'm excited to get into that one, but chefs and tattoos are kind of like my bread and butter. I love tattoos and I love chefs. So it was really great. 4 stars. The next book I read in August was Sous Chef, 24 Hours on the Line by Michael Gibney. This is another nonfiction book about chef. This is about Michael Gibney, who is a sous chef, and he basically just goes throughout his day, 24 hours as a chef, from the moment he walks through the kitchen doors to the next day coming in for breakfast. So this book gives a really detailed backstory on what it's like to be a chef. He goes through every task that he has to do, what he has to prep, what he has to cook, what the specials are like, and he also goes through what the different positions in a kitchen are. So if you're not familiar with the terminology, a sous chef is second in command. So there's the executive chef and then the sous chef. So he is second in command. He has another sous chef that's at the same level as him, and then he goes through the line cooks. The great thing that Michael does in this book is he provides a couple great resources for somebody who might not know everything there is about being a chef. First of all, he provides a diagram of his kitchen. So when he's talking about locations, you know where he is in the kitchen. He labels it. The second thing he does is a hierarchy of chefs. If you don't know what a sous chef is, how the hell are you supposed to know what his job is? So he tells you what the hierarchy is. Executive chef, sous chef, line cooks, etc. The last thing he does so fantastically, he gives you a glossary in the back of the book. So if you don't know that guanciale is an unsmoked Imbrian salami made from salted and spiced pig jowl, which he mentions in the book that there is guanciale in one of the dishes that he's serving, then you're not going to understand. It's going to be hard for you to visualize those dishes. And he goes into really great detail about the different foods that he's cooking. Michael does a really great job at, making the chef world attractive to people that might not know the business. And so this book was great. 4 stars. The next book I read in September was Landline by Rainbow Rowell. If you don't know, Rainbow Rowell is the magnificent author of Carry On, Fangirl, she's Eleanor and Park. She's done lots of YA romances. This is an adult romance, and this was actually shown in my least rated books on my Goodreads TBR. Landline, as I misdiagnosed in that video, it is not about a woman who is a workaholic. She is a workaholic in the book, but I talked about her getting to read messages from from her husband from when they were in college. That is not what happens. Basically what happens is Georgie is a writer on a TV show, and she is pitching her own TV show after Christmas for a network. And she has to skip her family Christmas trip to Omaha to see her husband's family so that she can work and pitch this TV show on the 27th of December. Her husband is furious. He's basically at his wit's end, and he says, I'm going to take the kids to Omaha for Christmas. You can stay here and work. It doesn't really say that, like, oh, we're going to get divorced or, oh, whatever, but we're going to go get some space. So he goes to Omaha, and she's kind of upset because she thinks she's ruined her marriage. She ends up going to stay at her family home, and she actually stays in her old bedroom, and she calls her husband one night on the old landline telephone that she used to call him from in college. And basically what happened is one Christmas break in college, her and her now husband broke up. She calls her husband Neil, and his dad answers. His dad has been dead for 3 years, so she is spooked. And she's like, I don't understand. So she ends up talking to Neil, and she finally realizes that the Neil she's talking to is 1998 Neil from college, not 2013 Neil, that they've been married for 13 years and have 2 kids. She's freaked out, okay? But she uses this to learn a lot about her relationship that she didn't know previously. Neil had a previous relationship that she was always jealous of, and she learned some things about that relationship that she didn't know, and she realizes that she's being an idiot, and she needs to go see her people, and that's how the book kind of goes. I gave it 3 stars, and it was a fine romance. The problem is that the book stressed 3 problems. The problems were her and her husband were fighting. That's a problem. She's pitching this TV show. That's a problem. And the third problem is that her best friend and co-writer on this TV show might have a love interest that's been going back since college, but that hasn't really been discussed. Those are the 3 problems. At the end of the book, none of the problems are solved. So it really frustrated me because I like my romances tied up in a bow, and this drove me nuts. I didn't like that it didn't have an ending, and I don't mind if there's like, oh, what happened? I want to know, though, in my romances, what happened. And so it just didn't work for me. It was 3 stars. It might be something that you get interested in, but it just wasn't for me. The next book I read was Tiny Beautiful Things, Advice on Love and Life from Dear Sugar by Cheryl Strayad. This book, I DNF'd. And DNF means I dubbed it Do Not Finish. I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to pick it up. And this book is basically about Dear Sugar, which was an advice columnist for the Rumbus, who was later found out to be Cheryl Strayad. Cheryl Strayad is the author of the memoir Wild, which is now a movie. This is an interesting book about an advice columnist, and it shows some of the letters that Sugar got and how she answered them. The thing is that Cheryl Strayad used Sugar as a character. She didn't use her own life experience. She didn't use her own problems, and she decided that instead of answering them like a normal columnist where it was all positive and fluffy, she was going to be real, and that's great, except she took the character a little too far, in my opinion. I think that there was a lot more backstory from Sugar that we got instead of actual advice. I mean, there was advice, but it wasn't like mind-blowing, oh, I never thought of that advice. I read about 4 letters and I couldn't read anymore. I got about 50 pages into the book and I couldn't do it. So I DNF'd it and I'm not picking it up again. 1 star for that one. I would not suggest reading it. The next 2 books I read go together, and they are Weird Things Customers Say in Bookshops and More Weird Things Customers Say in Bookshops by Jen Campbell. These books kind of go with Shaun Bytell's book of Diary of a Bookseller, and Jen Campbell is actually mentioned in Diary of a Bookseller about her other book that I'm currently reading, the Bookshop book, where Jen Campbell features Shaun Bytell's bookshop in the Bookshop book. It's very much a cross of authors, and I kind of like it. Basically, Weird Things Customers Say in Bookshops came out before Diary of a Bookseller, and it's just cute little blurbs about weird things customers say in bookshops. One of them being, do you have this children book? I've heard of it. It's supposed to be very good. It's called Lionel Richie and the Wardrobe. obviously a reference to The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It's just very funny, and it goes across Jen Campbell's experience as a bookseller and what it was like to run a bookshop and what people think of a bookshop. A lot of people thought it was a library, so they were stealing books from the bookshop when it was actually a bookshop. Both of them were 5 stars. They're very cute. She is a UK-based author, so I did have to order them on Book Depository, and so I had to order them straight from the UK. She's not really available in Barnes & Noble. I know she's available on Amazon. I really enjoyed the books. They were cute, fast reads. I read them both in a day, and I really enjoyed them, so 5 stars. The last book I read in August is With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. This book is about Imani, a teen mom in her senior year. She loves to cook, and an opportunity has come up at her high school where there is a culinary program, or a culinary class, and it's based on Spanish cooking, and it comes with a trip to Spain at the end of the year. This book was fantastic. Imani, who seemed like she had her shit together, she very much treated herself like an adult. She cared so much for her daughter, who she called baby girl. Her name is Emma, but she calls her baby girl. And she cares so much for her daughter, and she's not with the baby's daddy, Tyrone, and she really doesn't have any problems with Tyrone, and she doesn't mind that he's a symbol in her daughter's life, but she doesn't want to be with him. And so it's a very positive outlook on what a teen mom is. She's very serious about her job as a mom, and I really enjoy that. She puts her life on the back burner for her daughter, and I think that's really commendable, but a lot of times she doesn't get to do exactly what she wants, this culinary program in particular. It does come with a trip to Spain, which comes at a cost, and so everything does work out. She does get to go to Spain, and there is a small little romance that kind of takes the back burner to the main story. But the main story is that Imani gets to find out what she really wants to do in life and how she can achieve it. And I think it's a really good outcome of a teen parent situation where Imani doesn't really know what she wants to do, but she knows she wants to provide for her daughter, so she does everything she can to do that. I gave this book 5 stars, and it was completely fantastic, worth the read. Definitely, you should pick it up. And that was my August wrap-up. Thank you so much for watching. If you would give this video a thumbs up and subscribe down below. If you have any questions or concerns, please leave them in the comment section, and you will also find my social medias in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye! It's fantastic. Just go read it, please. Do it now. Pause the video. Go get the book from the library. Come back. Thank you. Next book I read in August is Knives and Ink. Oh, no, I lost it. Chefs and Their Stories and the Stories Behind Their Tattoos. The next book I read in August was Knives and Inks. Knives and Inks? Knives and... Okay. The next book I read in August was Knives and Ink. Chefs and the Stories Behind Their Tattoos. The next book I read in August was Knives and Inks. That was a lot of talking. I'm tired now.